A message appeared on her mirror. "Don't go downstairs." I woke to the faint hiss of the radiator in the corner, its warmth a thin comfort against the draft that crept beneath the window frame. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet for the hour. My alarm hadn't gone off. My phone lay dead on the nightstand after a drained battery had rendered it useless overnight. I rubbed my eyes, blinking against the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the blinds, and swung my legs off the bed. The air smelled faintly of last night's tea and the lingering copper tang of the radiator. My toes met the cold hardwood floor, sending a shiver up my spine. I walked toward the bathroom to splash my face, my reflection still fogged from the humid air trapped beneath the glass. And then I saw it. Words, written in uneven, almost jagged letters, sprawled across the condensation. "Don't go downstairs." I froze. My heart kicked into overdrive, every pulse thrumming in my ears. The steam from the shower hadn't even been on. The apartment was too cold for condensation to form naturally. The letters were damp, like someone had drawn them with a finger, but the glass had been untouched since I'd left for work the night before. I leaned closer, pressing a fingertip to the mirror. The surface was cold, smooth, nothing smudged, no trail of moisture that could explain the message. My breath fogged the mirror faintly as I exhaled, but the letters remained, static, permanent in their warning. A creak sounded from the floor below. My apartment was on the second story of an old building. The thin wood floors carried sound easily. I froze, listening. Another creak, closer this time, like a cautious step. My mind raced. Was it a neighbor? A burglar? Impossible. My door was locked, deadbolt, the window latched tight. I swallowed. My pulse thudded violently as I stared at the words again. "Don't go downstairs." I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was a trick of my imagination, the remnants of sleep playing on my mind. But then came another sound. A faint scrape from below, a low, deliberate shift as though something heavy had been moved across the floor. I hadn't left the lights on, but now shadows flickered at the edges of the room as the streetlight outside bent through the blinds. The radiator hissed again, sharper this time, as if exhaling in warning. A chill swept the room, colder than the rest of the apartment. Goosebumps rose along my arms. I wanted to leave the bathroom, to run, to call someone, but my legs refused to move. I approached the mirror again, trying to make sense of the letters. The handwriting was odd, uncertain. Some lines heavier, some faint, as if the person who wrote it had been trembling, or not fully human. The words seemed to pulse slightly in the dim light, the edges of the letters smudging just enough to suggest motion, though when I blinked, they were perfectly still. Another sound came from downstairs, a soft thump, followed by dragging, slow and measured. My stomach churned. My phone buzzed faintly from the nightstand, though I hadn't turned it on. A notification? My fingers shook as I reached for it, but when I picked it up, the screen was blank, dead again. I turned my attention back to the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, pale and wide-eyed. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, the letters cold under my fingertips. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. Faint footprints on the hardwood floor, leading toward the staircase. They were tiny, too small to be mine, too precise to be a trick of shadows. Fresh, wet. I stepped back. The hallway beyond the bathroom was dim, illuminated only by the weak glow of the streetlight. The staircase to the lower apartment, or basement as it had been built decades ago, lay ahead. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching, twisting against the walls. I could hear it again. That soft scraping, moving deliberately from one side of the floor below to the other. I wanted to leave the apartment, to call for help, but my hands trembled too violently to reach for the doorknob. The message on the mirror held me in place, heavy with an authority that wasn't rational. "Don't go downstairs." It felt like a command, not a suggestion, and the apartment had grown colder, darker in the corners. A whisper drifted up from below, faint but unmistakable. My name, not shouted, not hurried, just spoken, slow, measured, like someone testing whether I would obey. I couldn't see anything, but I felt it watching, feeling my heartbeat, counting each breath. I gripped the edge of the sink, knuckles white, staring down the narrow hallway toward the stairs. The shadows along the floor shifted, subtly at first, then faster, as though the walls themselves were bending to watch me. My reflection in the mirror seemed different now, not just pale but slightly out of sync with my movements. My mouth opened. The reflections remained closed. I stepped back, almost tripping over the rug. The scrape downstairs became a soft thudding, deliberate, synchronized with the pulse of my heart. The apartment felt wrong, as if the space itself had been rearranged while I slept. The staircase stretched farther, deeper than it should have been. A second whisper, closer this time, came from the foot of the stairs. "Don't come down." I turned fully toward the mirror, searching for any clue, any sign that this could be explained. The letters were unchanged, perfectly legible, but now an extra line had appeared beneath the first. "Look behind you." My breath caught. Slowly, painfully, I turned. The hallway was empty. No movement, no shadows, only the faint flicker of light from the street beyond the blinds. My eyes darted to the stairs. Nothing. Just the polished wood steps leading downward, swallowed by darkness. The radiator hissed, a low sigh, and the faint smell of ozone, or burning electrical wires, drifted from somewhere below. I could feel the apartment itself tightening around me, the air thick, pressing, weighted. The message on the mirror seemed alive, a living warning. "Don't go downstairs." Couldn't help it. My feet moved toward the door, toward the stairs, drawn as if by invisible strings. The floorboards creaked under me, each step amplified in the silent apartment. Shadows shifted along the walls, stretching unnaturally, and I could hear the faintest echo of movement below. Something pacing, deliberate, waiting. I paused at the top step. Darkness gaped at me, swallowing the stairwell. Another whisper drifted upward, soft, almost intimate. "You shouldn't be here." I wanted to retreat, to run, to call for help. My reflection in the mirror caught the corner of my vision. And then I noticed it. My reflection was smiling. Not me. My reflection, pale and still, grinning in the dim light, watching me as though it had always been expecting this moment. I turned to face the stairwell one last time. The shadows moved, curling like smoke. A cold draft brushed my neck. The faintest scrape of nails or claws echoed from the floor below. The mirror whispered again, almost for my ears alone. "You should have listened." I stepped back, tripping over the rug, my heartbeat thrumming in my ears. The bathroom door swung shut with a soft click behind me, though I hadn't touched it. The shadows in the hallway stretched and bent toward the stairs, and from the bottom, a low, patient hum began, like the building itself exhaling, waiting. I backed into the wall, staring at the mirror, at my reflection, at the letters curling faintly as though breathing. "Don't go downstairs." And I knew, even if I stayed here, even if I never moved another step, it would be watching, waiting, always downstairs. The apartment held its breath, and I realized the warning wasn't just for tonight. It had been written for every night I thought I was alone. And whatever was below was patient enough to wait. Always. She heard someone humming in the darkened living room. I woke to the faint whir of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the hum low and steady, almost comforting. Outside, the city was quiet, too quiet for the hour, with only distant sirens and the occasional honk carried across the empty streets. I rubbed my eyes, sitting up in bed, noticing the chill in the air. The apartment felt colder than it should, though the heater was running at the usual setting. That's when I heard it. A sound, low and melodic, vibrating faintly through the air. Humming. Soft. Gentle. Familiar, though I didn't recognize the tune. The source seemed to come from the living room, the long stretch of shadow beyond the bedroom door. I froze, listening. The hum wavered slightly, rising and falling as though the person or thing producing it was moving closer, yet the sound didn't shift spatially the way it should. It felt both near and impossibly distant at once. I swung my legs off the bed, bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. The apartment was silent aside from the hum. Each step toward the living room made the sound vibrate in my chest, a low resonance that felt almost alive. I reached the doorway and stopped, straining to see in the dark. The room was nearly pitch black, except for the faint glow of the streetlight bleeding through the blinds. Shadows pooled in corners, twisting where the light barely touched them. The humming continued, slow, methodical. But when I blinked, a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye made my stomach knot. Something shifted on the couch. Not quite a shadow, not quite a reflection. I spun my head, but the corner was empty. I whispered, testing my own voice, "Hello." The humming stopped instantly. Silence. Thick, heavy, pressing in from all sides. The faint scrape of the heater vent sounded unusually loud, echoing in the room. I took another step forward. The floor beneath my toes creaked, small and deliberate, almost as though someone or something was anticipating my movement. I reached for the lamp on the side table, flicking it on. The bulb sputtered weakly, casting uneven light across the room. Dust motes danced in the glow, drifting like tiny stars. The couch was empty. No one there. The coffee table sat where I'd left it. Nothing seemed moved, nothing touched. Yet the air felt wrong, charged, almost. Then I heard it again, humming, softer this time behind me, yet the room was unchanged. I whipped around. Nothing. The shadows seemed heavier now, pooling differently than before, stretching along the walls at odd angles. My reflection in the window across the room shifted strangely. My body upright, yet my head tilted to the side, eyes fixed on the corner behind me where nothing stood. I stepped closer to the living room, hand brushing along the couch's fabric. It was cold under my fingers, unnaturally so. The humming grew louder, then quieter, ebbing and pulsing, almost like breathing. My pulse quickened. My gaze swept the room. Books on the shelf perfectly aligned, the rug flat and undisturbed, the television off. No source. I whispered again. "Who's there?" The humming resumed, but slower now. Each note held a faint metallic edge, vibrating through the floorboards, through the walls, resonating in my chest. I realized with a jolt that the pattern was familiar. Not a song I knew consciously, but a tune I had hummed myself years ago, long forgotten. The way it lingered at the edge of memory made my stomach turn. I moved toward the kitchen, thinking maybe the sound was coming from the fridge again, a trick of resonance. The humming followed, perfectly in sync with my steps, yet always slightly ahead of me, as though predicting where I would go. I paused at the sink, heart hammering, listening. The reflection in the polished counter shimmered strangely. My own hands looked like they were moving independently, hovering just above the surface, mimicking gestures I hadn't made. The humming softened, stretched, as if inhaling, then a new sound layered over it. A whisper, faint and breathy. I caught words, just barely, fragments. "Don't leave, don't turn." My hair stood on end. I spun toward the living room. The lamp flickered again. Shadows twisted. I caught movement in the corner. A slight ripple, like someone leaning from behind the couch. But when I blinked, it vanished. I backed away, my eyes scanning every edge of the room. The humming began again, this time behind me in the hallway. I turned slowly, empty, but the reflection in the bedroom mirror showed movement. Someone, or something, crouched just behind me in the living room, head tilted unnaturally, humming softly. I whipped around. Empty. The hairs on my arms prickled. The air was heavy, almost wet. I could smell something faintly metallic, like blood, though I knew there was none. Just the cold, the hum, the sense of presence. I grabbed my phone. Battery dead. The hum grew louder, filling the small apartment with vibration, echoing off the walls. It was almost taunting now, stretching the air, bending it, following me with intent. I moved toward the window. Reflections. Shadows. The blinds shifted slightly, though the air was still. A shadow detached itself from the wall and stretched across the floor toward me, moving impossibly fast, folding around corners without passing through walls. I stumbled back toward the couch. The humming stopped. Silence, heavy and suffocating. I could hear my own ragged breath. Then, a soft click, like a floorboard under weight, coming from the hallway behind me. Slowly, impossibly slowly, footsteps. Not walking, not running, just moving, deliberate, measured, synchronized with the pulse of the hum in my chest. I turned, expecting to see the source. Empty. The reflection in the window, however, showed me standing frozen in the middle of the room. Yet behind me, in the reflection, a figure mirrored my stance perfectly. The head tilted slightly to the side, humming softly, smiling faintly. I ran for the bedroom door. The air shifted against me, colder now, thicker. The hum returned, rising in pitch, echoing from every corner simultaneously. I fumbled for the doorknob. The handle was cold, icy. I twisted it. Locked. I glanced at the mirror beside the bed. My reflection was gone. In its place, a figure crouched on the floor, humming the same tune I had just barely remembered. Head cocked, fingers tapping in rhythm on the carpet. The humming paused, then resumed, louder, more insistent. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. My reflection, or whatever it was, mimicked me exactly, but with a deliberate delay, each gesture copied, each blink staggered just enough to unsettle me. The figure leaned closer to the glass, almost pressing its face to it. I stepped back. The hum echoed around me, inside my chest, outside the walls, everywhere at once. The air grew colder. My feet were frozen. My ears rang. Then the humming stopped. Silence. I dared a glance at the living room. Shadows pooled in the corners. The faintest flicker of movement along the walls suggested the presence had shifted, retreating, but it hadn't left. I sank to the floor, pressed against the bed frame. The apartment felt too big now, stretched impossibly in ways that shouldn't be possible. Every surface reflected anomalies. Reflections slightly delayed, shadows bending, furniture subtly out of place. A faint, final hum drifted from the living room. Not melodic this time, low, resonant, patient. Almost a whisper. "Come back. I'm waiting." I didn't move. I didn't blink. The hum persisted, patient, endless, filling the apartment with its impossible rhythm. And I realized, whatever was humming, whatever had been there all along, wasn't just outside of me. It had been inside me, watching, mimicking, waiting, always humming, always waiting.